Hi, welcome to the Triheart Podcast. This is episode 7. I am Biff the Cup, and tonight we are hosting queer influencer and sex worker Little Sunboy.
Hi, that's me.
With featured music by Storm Blooper.
Hey, little sun boy. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I am a 23-year-old trans man who's been involved in the social media scene for about 6 or 7 years now, and also been a very public out trans man and sex worker for about 4 years. So I got a weird collection of experience and knowledge.
I actually found you. Well, I saw one person share you, and then so I watched your video. This would be referring to like one of your TikTok videos. And then I saw like on my feed like 20 to 25 other people share the same exact video. And I was like, who is this person? And then I went down the rabbit hole on all your social medias, and I was like, oh my God. Little Samoy is like amazing.
It's been a lot. Yeah, I kind of went from like nerd homestuck cosplayer on Tumblr, got my like social media following base there, then transferred into like Instagram makeup influencer, and then that didn't make me any money. So then I was like, okay, back to Tumblr, but this time selling pictures of myself nude. And there's a lot in between there. So
what events and experiences and perhaps even like experiments led to the current iteration of Little Sunboy?
So actually I can mark it back to pretty much an exact moment. Well, I'll back up a little bit. I've always really enjoyed photography, largely like self-portrait photography. And even before I had any kind of modicum of clout, I would set up photo shoots in my backyard, get my ancient digital camera, set a self-timer, make costumes and designs and stuff, and do that. So I've always loved self-photography. And then one time on my Instagram, and this person still follows me to this day, comes to my live streams, talks to me, and they sent me a message and were like, hey, these pictures are kind of hot. Can I buy more of them? And I was like, wait, is there a market for twink pre-op trans boy porn? And the answer was yes. Yes, there was. So I started pretty much making more lascivious designs among my pictures, and just started like putting together collections of costumes and then selling them. And then OnlyFans happened. Kind of that took off while I was already in this field. I started with my Patreon, and that kind of just continued to snowball into whatever I'm doing now.
Something I've noticed, like a correlation between you and a lot of the other guests and I've had, and I really try and bring in people that like inspire me and like are just so amazing, is that they are not just like a monolith musician or something like that. Like, you are a photographer, you're an artist, you do like a cosplayer. Is that fair?
I used to be a cosplayer. I would say now, if we're going to mark off my skills or titles, I would say like sex worker, artist, drag performer is
Nice.
usually kind of. I started doing drag last year, and that's kind of taken over the like costume aspect of my interests.
Whoa! Tell me a little bit about that, the drag aspect.
It's been amazing. I mean, I haven't been able to perform since fucking COVID. Haven't done anything since March because all the bars are closed. But yeah, I started last year. So since like I said, I was a makeup artist and a costumer for years. I also have like 10 years of dance experience.
Whoa.
And I love money and attention. And when I found out I could do all of those things in one thing, and it was drag, I was like, hell yeah. And so I just ended up being a guest performer with a local troupe. And then they liked me because I showed up on time and didn't leave the green room a shithole. And they were like, hey, come perform with us. And so I did.
Oh, damn. This is a good topic. Do you follow like any of the RuPaul stuff?
Not closely. To be honest, I don't have cable. The most I pay attention is like my mother and I will pirate it off Dailymotion and watch them like, mirrored and out of order. But there's a few RuPaul queens that I have enjoyed their like YouTube presences.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't really pay I haven't seen the newest season or anything like that.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, the queen she brings on, like Bob. I'm obsessed with Bob and Peppermint right now.
Love Bob. Yeah. I love Bob. I love Trixie.
Yes.
I love Violet Chachki is my favorite person to hate. And Katya is
Oh my
always
God, Katya is the best.
horror classic.
Well, one of the like things that has kind of sparked discussion is like RuPaul only wants men who identify as men at the time on her show to compete. So I wanted to ask you, what is drag to you?
Drag is a performance style. I mean, if we're going drag, the inception of drag, the acronym is dressed as a girl. It was started in Shakespeare because women weren't allowed to perform. But we got to see now that we've evolved vastly beyond that at this point. My drag troupe, one of the reasons I asked to perform with them specifically is because they are an all-inclusive drag troupe. We open every show saying, you will see all body types, economic backgrounds, races, and like sexualities on the stage tonight, and you support all of them. Like, we are here for drag as a performance art, not a restrictive club.
So yeah, going back into your TikTok, I was like, what really impressed me was trying to fit the umbrella of everything that is queer and LGBTQ plus into like 1 minute was unbelievable. Like, how do you prepare for these TikToks? And you've had like 4 or 5 of these really notable TikToks for me that you're able to crunch like so much information in 1 minute. How do you prepare for that?
To be honest, I don't. Like, I think one of the things is maybe, and I don't mean to, call out any of your knowledge of the queer community here, but I definitely don't ever start going in like, I'm going to summarize the LGBT experience in a minute. I think one of my first TikTok that really took off was the one where I'm talking about non-binary pronouns. And the thing about it is I was not trying to make a video about non-binary people. I went into that with like, hey, this is a personal experience that I have. This is a thing as a non-binary trans man that I run into a lot. People criticizing me or asking me why I don't use they, them pronouns, because there's this misconception that all non-binary people want to be androgynous or are gender neutral. And that was the only topic I was trying to cover, was that non-binary people can use any pronouns. There's a bunch of other things that could be said about like queer identities that were certainly not covered there. And that's kind of why anytime I end up with comments on my videos, I'll like make replies and then I'm like, oh man, I didn't think this. Oh man, I didn't say this. So there's definitely things that I really hope that people are not thinking they're getting the scope of the queer community in my minute-long videos. I really just don't want anybody to watch, 3 minutes worth of content and think, I am now an expert. Like, I'm not an expert. This is me learning and evolving too.
Yeah, I was a couple of our guests have been trans chiptune artists, and something that the podcast has kind of like learned or covered is that like it's not any experience is not a monolith experience. In your non-binary TikTok, you kind of explain non-binary identity isn't meant to fit to another's expectations or understanding of non-binariness. I don't know. Is there a better word for non-binariness?
That works.
So what is some of your experience with like an ignorant or underdeveloped understanding of being non-binary, and what is your understanding and experience, or expectations rather? What is your understanding and expectations of the non-binary experience?
I pretty much think that I think the main thing, and really what I kind of try to drive home, is that it doesn't fucking matter what I have to say. And I know that's like the worst answer, but it's really that I have a pretty strong stance against telling anyone how they can identify. Like, being non-binary for me just means I came out as a trans man, but I have learned over the course of my 7 years out of the closet, that I don't really feel it's One, I don't feel the need to present in a strictly masculine fashion, and I don't really care if I pass as male in all situations. But more than that, it's less about the presentation and more about just how I feel about myself as a person. And that's really what it's about. That's why it's people like, oh, well, you could just be a feminine trans man. Absolutely. You don't have to do anything, like, in my opinion, you don't have to do anything traditionally masculine to be a man. It is about what you feel about yourself. And I just know myself well enough. And I think that's one thing is people think that non-binary people are like confused or haven't picked a gender yet. But I know myself well enough to know I'm non-binary. It's
oh yeah.
not a lack of knowledge.
I love that. That's really like what you're saying kind of is true to like how I try and live. Like I know myself. Maybe I'm still learning about myself, but I know myself. And then what other anyone else wants to tell me about themselves, I'll just take it. I'll just listen to them, and that's what they're saying. Like I don't try and put my understanding of what I think everything is on them.
Yeah, I think I have a good example of that. Like
Yeah.
after I put out that TikTok, I got a lot of people saying, "Oh, so you're a demi boy," which is a micro label for somebody who identifies primarily as male but not entirely. And that's kind of the whole. There's a lot of discourse about micro labels in the queer community right now. But I think what you're trying to say is it's not comfortable or accurate or responsible to try and label someone else.
Right. Yeah.
And even if what somebody's saying by definition is a more technically accurate description of my gender identity, the fact that I choose not to use that label means it's not true.
Right.
Because micro labels are for yourself, not other people.
Something like about the being a human is that it is like a survival trait, or just like a trait of being human is to be able to identify tools, identify poisonous snakes,
Patterns.
yeah.
We're all
So
pattern recognition.
exactly. So when it comes to the identification of other humans, do you think that we as a species should put more into that, or do you think we should just let go of identification, or neither, or both?
I think the problem is like our restriction is largely language. I mean, there are languages that don't even have non-binary pronouns, and and kind of related. There aren't some languages don't have a word for pink, but English
Right.
does, so we register it as a different color from red, whereas we don't have a word for light blue. It's just light blue.
Right.
And I think one of the biggest barriers isn't trying to label things as much as it is trying to make things fit labels we already have. I think in English, at least, we lack a lot of language for the experiences of queer people because we just straight up don't have it. There are
Right.
words we are missing in English. And I think, again, the micro label thing, it's if people choose to come up with their own language for their own experiences, that is very cathartic. But I don't think it's necessary to make sure everybody fits one of those. It like you said, we try to do these things. We try to feel comfort in fitting these categories, and I think that's all it should be. As I think I said one of my TikToks, the main thing is just listen to somebody, what somebody has to say about themselves. Listen to what they tell you when they tell you their pronouns, and then just fucking use them.
Right.
And I don't think it really needs to be more complicated than that.
Here, let me throw you with this Ben Shapiro rhetoric I was
Okay.
So, how do you respond to the following, and why am I wrong? So I'll say, sorry, little son boy, there's only two genders.
Well, Ben Shapiro might not care that that's a very Eurocentric mindset. There have been historically like cultures across the globe that have had like third and fourth and fifth gender identities, and people who have been not only accepted in society but revered for those identities. There's also biological precedence for transness in many studies, and even if there was none of that, there have been so many studies done showing that even if we want to call transness, like a lot of Ben Shapiro-esque people do, want to call it a mental disorder, the proven treatment to help people is allowing them to express that and access to like gender affirming surgeries and treatments. Like it has just been shown over and over again that trying to quote fix trans people by making them cis just causes more harm.
Why do you think this kind of like Ben Shapiro type person or any, common Joe, why do you think they would want to live in a binary world?
Ignorance and simplicity. I think if you aren't exposed to things, people fear them. There's also a lot of just, it undoes a lot of comfort when you tell somebody who's been raised in a like cis-centric patriarchal society that you don't have to do these certain things because of your assigned gender. When you give that power to people, they don't know what to do with it.
Let's look a little bit more at the little sunboy identity. So, what masculine traits do you identify with, and what feminine traits do you identify with?
I'm going to pull my own 360
Go
and
for
answer
it.
this question with sort of a different thing. Actually, this just made me think of something I was talking to my mother about just the other day. So I get a lot of people who bully me on 4chan. there are just threads on 4chan of people just tearing into me. I've been on the internet long enough that I do not care. But one of the common threads amongst them is, oh my gosh, she should have just stayed a girl. She would have been such a cute tomboy. And the thing there is, I think there's this misconception amongst like trans men that it somehow goes on this scale of feminine woman to masculine woman to feminine man to masculine man all in a line. But I was feminine before I came out of the closet, and I am feminine after I came out of the closet because I like feminine things. I'm still the same person, and so these are it's the same things I've enjoyed. I've always liked makeup and dress up and performance and eccentricities and dance, and I don't really even think of the things I do as masculine or feminine. They're just what I enjoy.
Yeah, that kind of covers the next question, was that what traits do you identify with that transcend gender?
Being hot. I know that sounds dumb, but really, I was actually, again, talking to my friend the other day about one of the things that I find very true in my like non-gendered identity is more that I don't want to get too nasty on your music podcast, but I am a deeply inherently sexual person, and that's one of the reasons sex work has been so successful for me, because I think people can see that I enjoy what I'm doing. And I would rather just be perceived as hot than perceived as hot plus gender.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just want to be appealing. And I think that is very, very intrinsic to who I am.
Tell us a little bit about your work on OnlyFans.
I've actually only had my OnlyFans since December. You got it.
Oh, sorry.
No, what's up?
Oh, sorry. OnlyFans, I guess, is kind of like as a generalization for like your online sex work.
Yeah. So I started on Patreon about actually 3 years ago, as of last month. And I built up a little bit of a following there from the people who were on my makeup Instagram or my Homestuck Tumblr. And I say with shame. And it's been a really, really good outlet for my creativity. I love coming up with concepts for pictures and getting to be like playful and creative and artistic and slutty. And it's so much fun. But I will say that OnlyFans, just as a larger platform, I grew a following like 5 times as big as on my Patreon in like it's been what, 5, 6, it's been like 8 months since I've started my OnlyFans, and I've been at Patreon for 3 years, and it just blew it out of the water. Like, so much more interaction and income and like positive response. I mean, it's kind of sad, and I'm monologuing now. I don't know if I'm allowed to do that.
Oh, please.
But the thing that's a little sad is some of the work I'm most proud of is on my Patreon, and then the work people actually see is on OnlyFans. It's a lot more casual. I think people kind of like that it's more down to earth. It's kind of just like Twitter, but with nasty stuff. people like the familiarity, but
oh man, I feel you on that. I'm like, a lot of the art that I create, like the stuff that I'm most proud about, I don't know if this is kind of what you were saying, but like the stuff I'm most proud about kind of gets swept under the rug a little, or not as much as attention as I would want it to have. Yeah.
Like my Patreon picture, like this month I spent 4 hours covering myself in whipped cream and eating cake, and just made my entire dining room a fucking mess. And there's like 150 people on my Patreon who will see that, whereas I have like over 1,000 on my OnlyFans. So that's kind of the difference there. Is the stuff I feel like I put the most work into isn't the stuff that gets seen. But so is life.
Do you set the expectations of your OnlyFans and Patreon, or do you kind of like take requests so that you are like moldable to your fan base?
Definitely both. I would
Yeah.
say Patreon, I think that's the other thing, is that the Patreon is much more structured. Like it is, you are going to get what it says you're going to get on a scheduled basis. Whereas
Right.
OnlyFans, it's kind of like, hey, somebody wanted a video of this, so I did it, and here it is. And it's like, I took some pictures of my butt in the mirror after I went to the beach, and here they are. It's like a lot more casual vibe, and I kind of just like, well, this sounds like a fun idea, and just kind of whatever comes to my head, I'll do it. But so it's definitely there's the polished, structured Patreon, and then just the hot mess that is my OnlyFans.
What is your fanship like? Is there a word that you can like throw to explain your whole fan base?
I don't know. I just like good. I have had such good, fun people. Like I've really tried to cultivate an environment that isn't just like you're paying to see my butt, even though that's maybe what you're doing. But I think that's one of the things that's been really great about starting the TikTok was I've actually been really uncomfortable on video up until pretty recently, up until I started the OnlyFans, because I'm so used to taking just stills and pictures which you can edit and delete and make sure look really good. But being able to give people a more genuine look into just like what a fucking dork I am, I think has brought in people who are more interested in the whole person. Like people who are like, man, I enjoy this fucking nerd. Oh, and I can see his butt. Cool. And so it's been people mostly who are just really kind. I've had the positive experiences I've had have just so greatly outweighed the negative. And people have just been overwhelmingly supportive and patient and enthusiastic.
How do you like develop your content? That's like I kind of have it easy, like for like my podcast, for example. I just like find people I like and I invite them on. So basically like people like you are doing most of the work. But like but for your OnlyFans, how do you come up with like original content like every scheduled period?
And I post almost every day to my OnlyFans.
Wow.
And yeah, it's I watch a lot of porn. And so I'll get ideas there. I also have a lot of people who will send me in suggestions, but I mostly would just be like, I think this would probably be hot. And so I'll do stuff. Like I just come up with something, or I work a lot off of tropes, and I love cliches. I'm a sucker for a maid costume and a Playboy bunny outfit, just eat that shit up. But and I think again that kind of comes back to people have been so just supportive and interested in me as a person that a lot of the content that I get the most positive feedback on is just my more conversational stuff. Like it doesn't have to be some sultry video, this performance porn piece that looks like it's done in a studio. I'm just like, hey, what's up, guys? I'm gonna do some nasty shit. Let's do it. And then I like it. And so I kind of just get to be fairly casual in a lot of it. But I do like to do more complex things here and there, especially when people give me suggestions for stuff. Definitely gotten some weird requests, but for the most part, if I think it will be appealing to a wider audience, I'll usually just kind of make it. So
have you had to I like to get into like the greediness sometimes. Have you had to like reject requests?
Yes, definitely. I don't do anything one in a less nasty way. I can't fucking act. Just like people will want me to dirty talk on camera, and I don't think I could call someone daddy without laughing them out of the room. It would be a travesty. So I don't do any kind of if it's not genuine, I'm not doing it. If I have to be acting, just not gonna happen. I will burst out laughing. But then I also don't do like the grosser stuff. Like you're not gonna get any bodily fluids here, or things like that. There have been some just like kind of bizarre requests I've gotten. Somebody wanted me, I do have a gymnastics mat because I'm trying to learn how to do a death drop.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, somebody wanted a series of pictures that looked like I was a wrestler being choked out. Yeah, and then like passed out on the mats, and I did reject that. Somebody recently reached out and said I didn't get any details on this because we didn't go much further with it, though they just found out that they didn't have the funds for the video, but they wanted schoolgirl elf impregnation. I do not even know what that would be.
That just sounds hard.
Yeah.
Like the wrestler one too. That just sounds complicated.
And then my one of my favorites is somebody wanted pictures of me fully dressed, but with my hands up to the camera, looking like I was going to smother them. And the real kicker there is they said, and I quote, "I am exclusively attracted to the wrinkles in people's hands."
Whoa.
Yeah, like that is
wild.
All they're into. So yeah, I did do that one though, I will say. But yeah, gotten some interesting requests.
Do you think, have you learned, like, sexuality is so wild, like it's so ranged. What have you learned in dealing with other people's sexualities?
I think my experiences have really highlighted how I feel like people who buy porn sometimes get this like bad rep of being pathetic or something in some way, but all the people that like 99% of the people I've worked with have been vastly more like socially fluent, polite, patient, and understanding than any of the douchebags in my inbox that are like, "Hey, send nudes." It's you get a scope of people, but I definitely think like the kink community and people who are willing to put money towards creators they enjoy and content that they know is coming from an ethical place, that is customized, that will be something worth buying, are just generally more respectful people. I don't know if that really answers your question, but it's kind of hard.
It definitely does.
It's kind of hard for me to just figure like guess what people's kinks that I've worked with, because I have one person who buys a lot of dance videos for me, and they're always non-nude, just cute little. They just like little dance videos of me shaking my butt, and then like totally out of nowhere they were like, "Hey, do you have some electrodes?" So you really never know like what somebody's full scope is going to be, because I thought this person was very vanilla, and then they were like, "I want to see you in pain." So I just try not to guess anymore.
I guess here, I'll just push it a little further and let's see. So like maybe not necessarily the hands example, but like if we were to look at the hands example, like why do you think that person was sexualized with the wrinkled hands?
I wouldn't even begin to guess, to be honest. I mean, there are certain things like this is sort of not exactly related to that, but I am actually getting a degree in psychology.
Whoa.
And yeah, I have my bachelor's of arts, and I'm getting a bachelor's of psychology. Well, I have my associate of arts. I'm getting a bachelor's of psychology.
Oh, I got you. Oh my God, that's amazing.
And one of the things I learned in one of my psychology classes that foot fetishes are biological. The part of the brain that controls like motor function of the feet is right next to the part that controls sexual arousal. And in people with foot fetishes, often it is the case that the foot motor function section is enlarged and pressing into or overlapping with the section that controls sexual arousal. So there's things that are just like that you are, sorry, buddy, you're like born as a foot dude, I guess. But then there's also like, everybody's experiences shape them. I was into cops and robbers a lot as a kid. And as a kid, I really liked being tied up and trying to escape. And I definitely think that eventually evolved into a bondage kink. So it's hard to guess at where things come from, but I try not to as long as you're not hurting anybody or anything, it's, I don't know. I'm not terribly judgmental.
The foot fetish was, I have no evidence to back this up, but this always just stuck with me. I thought this was so interesting. Obviously, foot fetishes transcend beyond sexualities, but in the gay community, I heard that it wasn't, the foot fetish was popularized after the AIDS epidemic because it was the body evolved itself into a more safe sexualization, there's no sexual transmissions through feet. So that's just something that stuck with me, and I have no evidence to back it up.
Yeah, I mean, there's things like that have evolved in different cultures throughout time. Oh gosh, which was it? Was it the Romans or the Greeks who were real gay?
Oh yeah, probably both.
Yeah. I don't remember exactly which, but for a long time in whichever one of those societies was the real gay one, the buttocks was not actually a sexualized part of the body, but the thighs were, because gay men would not have anal sex, but would have sex between the thigh. They would use the pressed together thighs to rub their dicks through, and that became a type of a popular type of gay sex in that ancient culture. So fetishes and the register in your brain of something as sexy is so shaped by culture. I mean, this is the same as breasts. There's cultures all across the world that you can just have your titties out, nobody bats an eye, but they're just so sexualized in European countries that it's, they're so taboo.
one thing I love about your social media presence is like how varied it is. Actually, oh my God, you had me dying with one of your TikToks. It was like, I would love for you to show me how to apply horns, and it's just like you
Yeah, I mean that that was kind of I felt like sometimes I feel a little mean, but that one was like, how do you put these horns on when literally I just stick them to my face? It is a one-step process, and that is the step. So, um,
Oh my God. No, I must have watched that one like 30 times last night. I was like, oh my God.
well, good. I try to be. I was raised in a very like funny family, I guess. And I try to bring humor into all the things I do. It can be kind of hard, like balancing though, being um like funny and friendly on camera and trying to set boundaries as a sex worker.
Yes. Yeah. What boundaries do you create for yourself?
Well, I get like, and they're always very well intentioned. So I always feel like a dick, even though I don't feel like I'm actually doing anything wrong. But I get lots of messages that are like, "Hey, can we be friends?"
Hmm.
And there's kind of two pieces of this. One, as I made a TikTok about this, but if you follow somebody on social media and you're seeing their posts and pictures, you're getting a glimpse into who they are. You can find them attractive or interesting or funny. And so you'll have a motivation to want to get to know them, to spend that time and energy. But as a content creator and not knowing this random person in my inbox,
Right.
I don't have that same motivation to spend the time and energy to get to know everybody who asks me to be friends.
Right.
And then there's also just the other side of it where like my job as a sex worker, as specifically a digital only sex worker, is talking to people all day. So if I'm talking to people who want to be my friend, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be my friend, but it is taking away my time from somebody who's paying my bills.
True. Yeah.
And it's not, and I am so flattered, and I think it's so sweet that so many people are interested in me enough as a person to want to reach out that way. But I just, as a single human, do not have the time or energy to do it. Like,
Right.
and so I have to set pretty strong boundaries there. I don't want to like really lead anybody on in thinking like I would never be like, haha, yeah, we can be friends. That'll be $5. Like I'm very much like, hey, I spend my time and energy on the people who are contributing to my job. But you're welcome to watch my videos, come to my live streams, chat, and interact. I love that, but it can make me feel like a bad guy.
Did that ever go like, do people generally understand that, or does that ever go sour for you?
Only in little ways. Like I had somebody on one of my live streams just a few days ago when I was live streaming on TikTok, send me a message that was like, they were like, "You weren't nice to me when I asked to be your friend the other day," and I was just like, "I am sorry, but I do not know who you are." And it's just little things where I think people expect a lot out of the people that they get entertainment from. Because, we've had this historically, like, you wouldn't expect a movie star or somebody to just want to be your friend. And I'm not saying that I'm on that same level at all, but we have evolved in our entertainment consumption where influencers and even just random people on TikTok are the people you're getting your entertainment from.
Right.
And for the most part, you're getting it for free. And this idea that all of these people are going to have the energy and, resources and interest in both providing you with free entertainment and giving you their time and energy to be your friend is, I think, pretty unrealistic.
Yeah. Oh man, it's so interesting you brought that up. I was just thinking about when I was growing up, I grew up in the 90s, and like Britney Spears, NSYNC, like these were not people. These were like gods, like inaccessible gods. And this is, this was a little bit before the internet. So like you did not have access to anything that you were shown to on TV. But with like the internet, you are able to communicate with your entertainment, with your online entertainment. And that, I think, is people, maybe not people a little younger who have grown up like that anyway, but like for people like me, that is like a curve that I need to get over, like learning how to communicate with people that are entertainment.
Yeah, it's definitely a shift in like how we do things. I think we went from the whole, Beyonce, you're not gonna fucking send Beyonce a text and expect her to respond. And then we went into the age of like, when social media influencers started becoming a thing and
Right.
they were smaller and you could interact. And now we're kind of going into, and have been for a while, social media influencers being celebrities. Like, I mean, fucking James Charles went to the Met Gala. Like,
Right.
people that are started as just people on YouTube or TikTok or whatever, then becoming that, like, oh my God, this person is a celebrity with fans. And I really want to be clear that I am not putting myself on this level.
Oh,
I'm
no.
shit who made a TikTok a month and a half ago. But there's levels to all these things,
Yeah.
And I think like seeing somebody and being like, oh, this person isn't a huge celebrity. They're, relatable. I enjoy their content. That's totally cool and good. It's good to have people who seem more like humans than some, alien celebrity. But if somebody has 100,000 followers, I don't think it's reasonable to be upset if they don't respond to your message.
Right.
You gotta give people some patience and slack.
One thing I was going to say about your presence is that it's very like advisory. Like I think people are able to, I certainly have been able to learn so much without, even though I did end up communicating with you before I put out that invitation for the podcast. Like I learned so much about queerness. And do you find yourself like in your work, do you find yourself kind of like in an advisory role ever?
I don't try to put myself in that position. I think I just have a low tolerance for bullshit. Like I think I actually said in one of my TikToks, I really didn't plan on being on the non-binary gender studies crash course side of TikTok. I just wanted to make thirst traps. I wanted to make dumb little dance videos until people were like, just in love with me. And that was it. But I don't do well with an abundance of ignorance. And so I'd get tons of comments that I was like, I will just address this. And then I would, and people would like how I presented the information. And so those videos are the ones that actually kind of took off. And I have a few more brewing up in my brain that are just like things I have experience with that I'd like to cover, I guess.
Another one I really, really, really liked, because I consider myself like kind of on the left, and I see like a lot of rhetoric online that irritates me, like snowflake rhetoric or huge misconceptions about whatever the left is. But I loved your TikTok on like the idea of being offended and like rhetoric and attitudes that just really don't belong in polite society. Would you want to talk about that one at all?
I could. That was mostly just kind of like the reason I was wearing a corset in that video was because I was trying on outfits that I was going to wear for my Patreon. And I was just like, I got a comment that has been echoed over and over. And yeah, I don't know. That video is also kind of, it's funny that one took off to me because it was so melodramatic. And it's been shared, like it has almost 1 million views. Somebody took it and put it on Facebook, and it has almost 1 million views on Facebook. And I did not even know until one of my friends told me they saw it, which was a little wild for me because I do say I'm a sex worker in the video. And I I wasn't expecting that to just get blown up all over Facebook when my fucking grandma is, but that's fine. Yeah, I definitely just have an issue with people thinking that there's something inherently wrong with having an emotional reaction to things, that somehow equates being weak or misinformed or unreliable, and that something has to be personally damaging for me to think it should be reconsidered or fixed. Like,
Right.
really, the whole point of that video was just like, it does not have to be about me for me to think that that way of thinking shouldn't exist. Like, I'm a white person, but your racism still offends me because I do not think we should live in a world with racism. That doesn't mean
Right.
you hurt my feelings. It means I think the way you are going about your life contributes to the downfall of man.
Right. Yeah, I identified with that video a lot. I mean, kind of in a different way, but like when I saw that video, I was 2020 is kind of like a whirlwind right now. So on like Facebook, who, I don't unfriend people like I don't like, but I appreciate having different rhetorics in my thread so I can respond or see them and not live in a bubble. But, I'll see like a lot of one that really stuck out to me was like people who you might say are in the right, like were posting millennials protesting and blocking a street. And they were just like, oh, I would run all those snowflakes over. They're so weak, blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, what is going, I don't know. It was just like, what are you talking about? And what do you think people are? And like,
Yeah, it's people just deciding that any opinion that doesn't like fit theirs, and this happens on both sides.
right.
I just happen to think my side is right, but but of course I do. Is that there's a moral failing. Like, people have decided certain things about certain groups, like, oh, these millennials or Gen Z out there protesting, they're just big babies whining about stuff. And that's kind of what has been like propaganda painted of that generation, even though what is weak about standing up against police brutality?
That's what I'm saying.
Again,
That's what I'm,
yeah,
yes.
what is weak about being like, losing an eye, being shot with a tear gas
Right.
canister out there every night defending something you believe in? Like, what? How do you get there from there? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, I think like the incontextual information that went into that TikTok was part of why it was viral, but also just like the general idea of what we were just talking about, like that really spoke to me. I love that. That was great.
Good. Thanks.
Another one that I really liked was one where it was like how to talk to a queer person or a trans person.
Oh,
Yeah, that one was so good. So you basically had said in this one, like, what you would not ask a cis person is what you would not ask a trans person.
yeah. Like, pretty much just don't say anything to a trans person you wouldn't say to a cis person.
Right.
Yeah, that one was, again, mostly just like a frustration video that I didn't actually expect to get any views. It was mostly just like all of these people in my comments, because I get like hundreds of comments on my TikToks every day, and I do read almost all of them. And
You
it's just,
do? That must take so much time.
yeah, I don't got a lot going on. But I do read like pretty much all my comments, and a lot of them are just the same things over and over again that I'm like, I can't imagine just saying this to a stranger. And
Yeah.
people think anybody of any minority group, it's just that we, in America, see like cis, white, male, and straight as not just like as the default. If you're not those things, you're something other by some choice. Like,
Right.
it's this. I'm gonna start that over.
Okay.
So I don't know if I have a thought on this one. It's mostly just that people see being a minority as an invitation to ask about that thing,
Right.
even if it is a stranger.
Yes.
It is that you have made some choice to go against societal norms, and in doing so, you have invited invasive questions. And that goes for anybody. I mean, anybody of any minority group. And that just isn't true. Yeah, it's just pretty much just talk to people like they're fucking people. Like, if you wouldn't say it to me at a dinner party, don't say it to me in my
Right.
TikTok comment.
What would be some examples of questions that would kind of go with what we were just talking about? And then like parallel, what questions would you never ask a cis person?
I think so to start, you said questions that go along with ones I've gotten.
Yeah.
Like, have you had the surgery? Which isn't a thing that exists. There isn't any one surgery that all trans people get. And I get a lot of like, this one is always kind of backhanded. Was your family supportive? I think I personally try not to perpetuate the idea that there's anything wrong with being trans. Or I've gotten the question different. Was my family more upset that I was trans or that I was a sex worker? As if those are things that obviously inherently in all cases somebody's going to be upset about.
Right.
My family was upset about neither, because neither of those things are bad things to be. They're things that are stigmatized, but they're not bad. And I think questions that insinuate that there's something wrong with being trans, that there's, something wrong with doing sex work, or that all trans people fit a certain box. Things that fall into those kind of categories, these broad sweeping statements are just unanswerable in most cases, because they'll be asking me to answer questions about the trans community at large, whereas I'm one person and I do not try to speak for more than just myself. And things that just are rude. I get the statement a lot. I'm just curious, but never does. Yes, I get that. I understand that you're curious, obviously, but I've been curious about people a lot, but I'm not going to ask them things that are invasive because of my curiosity.
Right.
Like if I saw somebody missing an arm, I'm not going to walk up and be like, hey, I'm curious. How'd you lose your arm? Like we have these things that, I say that it sounds like an obvious example, but it's only obvious in some situations and people don't put it together for others.
Right.
And questions that would be bad to ask a cis person. Was that the second question?
Yeah.
So you just didn't come out? Like you were just good with what they said, huh? Okay. I mean, I guess if you don't want to pick for yourself, that's fine. But I guess if you just want to go with the store-bought version, that's fine. Like if you're just out of the box, like, like I don't know. Like
no, that's a good one. I love that.
Like, was your family accepting when you just went with what the doctor said, or like these things that sound, absolutely ridiculous, but I suppose they're ridiculous both ways, and people have just decided that they're not one way.
I think that's a good point. It's not so much like a different set of questions. It's like the same set of questions that would make anyone feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the whole point, is don't say things to trans people that you wouldn't say to cis people.
Right. Where can people find you?
I'm all over the internet. Easiest place to find all my stuff, though, is go to all my links. So that's allmylinks.com/littlesunboy. You're going to find links to my Patreon, my OnlyFans, my TikTok, or actually my TikTok. I'll put my TikTok in there, and my Twitter. But I have pretty much the same username everywhere. My Instagram's on there. My drag Instagram's on there. So all my links, which is one word.com/littlesunboy.
It was so interesting to hear you say, like, you just talk about yourself and you just threw it out there and you didn't really like expect anything necessarily, but so many people identified with it that it became viral, is my theory. Because like, even though we have two different experiences, I really identify with like a lot of what you have put out there.
Yeah, I think that's kind of I think that's what makes TikTok a powerful platform, is people realizing how much they have in common with other people.
Right.
Actually, one last thing?
Oh, go for it. Yes, please.
Terrible. Like an example is, I saw a TikTok where this girl was like, anybody hold in their pee? Because it kind of feels good a little bit. And there were so many comments that were like, wow, I'm not alone. Wow, I feel so seen right now. And I think that's really it, is you will find whatever you're trying to identify with.
Okay, so my last question is, where do you draw the line between, okay, this person is really just trying to educate themselves and learn through talking through you? And then where do you draw the line between that and like this person is being invasive and rude and inappropriate?
I think if people are asking more generalized questions or are like, that's kind of a double-edged sword because people tend to shoot themselves in the foot by asking too generalized questions, which Google is free. And if you actually want to get some good feedback from somebody you're trying to question online, I think a good first step is whatever question you have, first Google it.
Yeah.
If you don't get the answer you're looking for, tell this person, hey, I tried to Google the information. I'm not finding what I'm looking for. Would you be willing to answer this question? And that's pretty much it. And the big and here, if they say no, move along.
Right.
You know, if somebody has told you this isn't something I share, that is not a personal attack. They do not owe you their anecdotal experience. They do not owe you their personal details. People seem to sometimes get hurt when somebody isn't willing to just share everything, but that is not a good thing to expect of everyone. Especially stranger timeline, kids. Stranger danger. Don't just ask people dumb shit. Yeah, I think as long as you've put the effort in to figure it out for yourself and are showing that you've respected somebody's time and energy, that's all it really takes.
I love that. Last week we had someone named Momo Pixels, who is like, she's amazing. She's like an artist and a stylist, and she just goes everywhere in like a tutu, and like she dresses amazingly all the time. So, but she was like, she created this game called Hair Na, which is like you're a black woman and you're trying to swap away like white hands from like touching your hair, because that is a problem in the community. Yep. But so anyway, so I was like, how do you deal with people? Just like, how do you deal with people, I guess? And she was like, people really need to realize like when they're asking a question, are they like, the question was like, how do you get your hair like that? And she was like, are you asking me rhetorically? Are you like, even if I explained it to you, would you understand? Like, what are you asking when you ask me that question?
Yeah, that is a really good point. And I think that comes up a lot with trans people too. Like I'll get questions from cis people that were like,
right.
You know, like, what's it like being on hormones? And it's like, well, I could tell you, but how would that change your life?
Right. Yeah.
Like, what are you just curious because you want to know personal details about me? Or is this something that's actually going to benefit you?
Yeah.
I think motivation is also a really good thing to analyze. And I really like how she put that. Yeah.